All right, I'd like to call to order the very second meeting of the Trails and Greenways Committee. Let's do roll call. Secretary Cook, please.
Chairman DeVincenzo.
Present.
Bethany. Aaron Cook, Secretary, Present. John Custer,
Here.
Joe Falcon.
Present by Zoom.
Joe, are you on?
Joe, you're muted.
Yeah, can you guys hear me? Hello?
We'll work on getting him heard, but we know that he hears enough that he unmuted to let us know that he was here, but we'll work on making sure he can be heard.
He's texting me. He said he can't hear anything.
He can't hear anything.
I just got a text 3 minutes ago that he can't hear anything either.
Well, then maybe he's not hearing. Oh, it was interesting. So Steve, if you want to, well, don't hold up. Let's keep.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you now.
Joe, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. I'm trying to work on working with my car, but yeah, I'll be fine with speakerphone. That's fine.
Are you present?
I am present by Zoom.
Thank you. Dr. Delia Archer. Joe Kasuka. And Terry McCarthy.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. You're so far away.
You can, if you want to move down. You can.
If everybody would stand for, or no, I'm sorry, moment of silence. Moment of silence, please. Everybody rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right, first item
If you
is,
would, let's just put on the record that Beth arrived at 5:37, just so we have it on the record.
tardiness.
I'm
is-
sorry.
Sorry, wonder.
Send me to the principal's office.
That wasn't
Just
meant
for
to
the
very few. It just was meant to put it on the record as we did votes that you were here now.
Okay. Item number 4, consider approving the agenda for today's meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
I move.
Let the record show that member Harry McCarthy is moved and
Second.
seconded by Secretary Aaron Cook. Thank you. Okay, so item number 6, due to our,
You need to go ahead. And
oh, I'm sorry. Oh, my gosh. Thank you. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
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 All opposed? The ayes have it. Unanimous. Thank you, Steve. I'm going to get better at this, I promise.
All good.
Okay, so now open to item number 5, public comment for the agenda only. We have 2 members of the public here in person today. I don't know if you would care to comment on any of the items we have there. Yes. In the preserve. Okay, yes, item number 9.3. Yep, okay, we can get to it at that point. Steve, I don't think is there any procedural reason why after we go to
You
that
can,
they
you
could
can
comment?
always take public comment
That's right, you
at
did say that.
at any time you wish to take public comment, but typically we do public comment at the beginning so that you don't have to go back unless you just want to.
Gotcha, okay. Sounds good, thank you very much. Okay, item number 6, election of officers. Since Secretary Cook was unavailable during our first meeting of the year, I was temporary doing dual role there, but as of right now, does anybody want to nominate anybody other? I believe we did talk, Aaron, and you still do want to do it, correct?
Yes.
That didn't sound too convincing, but
Yes.
greatly appreciated. Do we have to officially nominate and do we just vote on it at this point?
So you would want to go ahead and have somebody nominate, if everybody's comfortable, have somebody nominate Aaron and then second and then take a vote, or if somebody nominates somebody else, that's also an option.
I nominate Aaron Cook for secretary,
Second,
Second.
seconded by member John Custer. And all four say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, now on to the minutes. Consider approving the minutes from the January 5th meeting. Anybody want to make a motion to approve?
Second.
Moved by member Terry McCarthy, seconded by Secretary Aaron Cook. All four, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it, unanimous. Minutes are approved. Item number 7, over. On to new business, item number 8. Discussion and possible action regarding recent and future trail walks. So Terry, would you mind giving us a summary of our recent one that we just had this weekend?
That was fantastic. It was a terrific event. We're working closely now with Kathy Cavalier of the Historical Society. And we started at the paper mill. We had about 80 people sign up. But then the Eagles game was in conflict. So 40 people canceled. And that was great because we ran out of parking at the paper mill. So people were parking fully down there and then up along the street, Paper Mill Road. So I'm thinking that maybe we have to cap this if we do it, if we had 80 people, where would they go? Would be my first question to the township.
I think it depends on where you're doing the walk and then where you have people. I mean, some places it's probably not as big a deal as it is at other places. Right, so.
But we're going to do another one on February 11th. With the Historic Society's chocolate and wine event.
And where's that?
All 4 of the locations, but we're going to the paper mill again. Because what we did this event was we walked from the paper mill to Skunk Hollow.
Yeah.
Via the boardwalk down on the right. And then we walk back. And so there's another option for this time. We could walk down and take a left up where the Boy Scouts made those stairs that go up to the willows. And
Okay.
then back. So that's what we would like to do on February 11th. And I'm just, to go back to the parking issue, you also have a really cool event happening with chocolate involved and then us. So is there anything you want me to do regarding parking?
Well, I mean, obviously, there's options of, and I'm not saying that we should do this, but there's options of looking for ways to get people transported in. If they choose to park, like you could work an agreement to park someplace else and then shuttle people back and forth. I said, but then you got to have somebody to do the shuttle, and that's always an issue. I don't know how you decide you're going to limit. If, what if you have 30 people that just want to be at the paper mill house? How do you know how many you should have for your walk? That's the thing I don't know.
Well,
Would it be
There's-
feasible for us to start from the Willows and walk to the paper mill house?
there
So we
is
can-
parking at the Willows, but I don't know how that would be an option, but I don't actually.
Then you have people that maybe are taking in some wine, hiking back too. So I don't know how we feel about that, but
There is
Better
parking
driving.
at the Willows.
I mean, if there's more parking at the Willows, I mean, I don't think that's a problem. That's a public park as well.
Is it?
I mean, it's Radnor's Public Park,
Yeah.
so.
only becomes a problem in the summertime when they have somebody waiting at the gate, but That's not a problem now.
So why don't you say if you get 40 RSVPs to this next event that, then you can start with the process of overflow parking at the Willows?
Well, but you got people, you got two ends, right?
Yeah.
So unless you want to split it and so that half the people walk this way and the half the people walk, you know.
Not a bad idea to,
Mhm.
to kind of
Possible.
have it coming from both directions and.
If you
Well,
go more than 40 RSVPs.
And you want to be respectful, I would say, that the Historic Society, if the entire parking lot for their event is taken up with those using the trail, they won't have anybody just going to their event anymore.
Neighbors, that's all. Yeah.
And what about, do we know when the bridge is going?
They have not given us a date, so I don't think.
Okay. Okay. I just.
Well,
wanted to make sure.
I was kind of not anticipating so many this time. But what I think is happening is in the winter, there aren't that many competitive scenarios, so you get a lot of people interested. We got a ton more people signed up to be in the meetup group. That doesn't happen in May and June and July because there's lots more stuff to do outside. But right now the iron's hot, so we want to hit it again. So yeah,
Well, you could probably limit the crowd if you did it on the 12th.
Yeah, you think? Smart.
I'm busy.
I tell you what, well, that's why I was like, oh, it's a Saturday, Kathy, yeah, we'll go. But Kathy's looking forward to having us participate because it gets more buzz, you
Sure.
know, and people were really enthusiastic about this walk. But yeah, the 12th would be
If
funny.
the Monday after was a national holiday, we could market it as a way to sweat out the toxins from the previous day, but I don't know.
Yeah, so.
I think that, I just think that you have to, I would work with Kathy
Okay,
and see, I mean, I think George is right. If, or somebody said, you know, if you had 40 people who were walking from the paper mill, you now don't have room for those who were just attending the paper
Right.
mill event. So it may be best just to say, we're going to have everybody meet at the Willows, walk over and then walk back. And so, you know, that's just a thought. Just-
okay, we'll talk about that too, I think, with whoever of us is attending, because, you know. we'll have-
I should be able to attend. I mean, we're looking the last weeks of the month, basically, right?
Yeah, it's the, no, this is February
February
11th.
Oh.
February 11th. It's a Saturday. It's
That's
like-
fine.
yeah.
I think
Next
I'm
Saturday.
good.
Joe, will you be available? Awesome. Okay. Oh, great.
Yeah,
So
I can
there's
make it.
Joe and Anthony.
I'm hoping I can make it.
Oh, super. Erin and maybe even John.
Maybe.
We're gonna drag him up that hill.
Yeah, I had help from two women to get up one of those hills, so
Two beautiful
I've
women.
headed to
Keep
the
forgetting that
gym
part.
this past week.
We could turn it into an adventure race and people get like a prize or something if they carry you up. You know, Like in other cultures where they lift the elder on their shoulders.
I've been called dead weight before.
All right,
Good one, John.
all right.
Okay, so we
That's
know
like
the
that.
event is on the 11th. We don't know where we're going to start it until. Okay, do you want to park at the Willows? What do you want to do?
I mean, I think from everything I've heard from what the point that George said, the fact that there is available parking there, it's a, you know, it's a public larger than otherwise. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I've been there a couple times, but it's been about 4 or 5 years, I think. So I'm trying to remember, but
Do you
I
want
guess
to, what
it-
time do you want to start?
well, I don't think there's any other. Yeah, that's a good point.
You know,
I think the Historic Society event is between 12 noon and 4 o'clock.
So if we started at 12:30 or 1. We. We won't. Bother her opening, she can have time to set up and whatnot, but. Is 1 o'clock okay? What do y'all
I
think?
think that's fine.
If you're starting at the Willows, you may want to start even earlier. That
Yeah.
way, you'll get to the paper mill house, maybe 1 o'clock or something like that. People have time to either hang out or drive back after they're done with the walk and see it. If you started a little bit later, they don't have time to drive back and really spend the time that they want because they're on a walk.
Okay, 12:30. Is that
works.
good?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we should start right at 12 because that's when,
Well, if you're starting from paper or from
Yeah.
the Willows, it won't matter because you won't get to the paper mill till at least 12:30, 12:45, 1 o'clock.
okay.
Good point. And you don't want the chocolate to be gone when you get there.
Yeah, competing for the chocolate, are we? Okay. Any issues with that, George or Steve? Noon is good?
Did we say noon or 12:30?
12th.
Noon? What do you want, guys?
I don't know how long it takes to traverse from the Willows over there. That's my only question.
30, 35 to 40 minutes.
I'd say 12:30 then.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that works.
that's more of a time that will pop, I think, too, than noon, just from, awareness.
Okay.
12:30. Parking at the Willows, February 11th, be there. Cool. Okay, and then the subsequent one is exciting too, because we're going to Garrett Williamson again. And that's going to be, Beth, you want to take it away?
Looking at having that on March 19th, which is Sunday. There'll be some trail led walks. I will be there for that one, although not for the Willows one. And I believe they're talking about having kind of snacks and stuff over in the Ram barn. So hopefully there'll be some new little babies for us to check out.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And that again is at 12:30. So these both will start at 12:30 and run till maybe, well, I know they want to stop at 2 at Garrett Williamson, so.
Okay.
That's the story.
Great.
We were happy to have Leonard come with us on this past walk. He did a good job with speaking, so did Kathy, so did Beth. Beth did some great presentation data. Mhm.
Yeah, and Leonard provided a lot of context to that access, on that road and getting the public access into Skunk Hollow, which I had no idea the history of that, so that was actually extremely helpful.
And John Custer.
Yep.
Did a lot of chatting about it.
Yeah, it seems like might be decided fairly soon, the litigation, so.
Yeah, what do you say? It's been going on for like 10 years, 12
Mhm.
years, something like that.
Seems like it,
I think that's what he said. I think that's
Yeah.
what Leonard said, so. Okay. Any other points from the recent trail walk or future one that people want to comment on? Any other? No? Okay. That brings us to item number 9, old business, 9.1. Discussion and possible action regarding the review comments for the Joyfor Land Development application. So we had talked about this in the previous meeting and kind of gone over everything. I had written everything up based on everybody's comments. Had some back and forth on email and then did get that out. I think I sent that out on the 27th. Which was what, was that this Monday? Oh, wow, I guess it was. So really the main takeaway from that was some of the similar things we talked about before, which is making sure we have sidewalks, especially in the areas of where they're talking about doing the developing. So that is a small portion of that overall property, but making sure that they had some. So I put an exhibit in the drawing that kind of showed just where they're anticipating people walking along the main road. Again, if it rains, just like the conversation previously, people aren't going to want to walk in the muddy grass. They're going to end up in the street, which is going to be a hazard to both the cars driving there and the pedestrians. So they want to use this space. I believe Mr. Neese, there was some conversation about that one building they have in there for like an event space essentially by the Veterans Memorial Park, right?
Well, I think that the new building that they're building would be for the veterans
Yeah.
to meet, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, but didn't they say that they would also potentially rent that out as an event space?
I
I thought
don't,
that was in the conversation last time.
I don't recall that.
Oh, okay. Because I thought this was like a pseudo VFW, like not quite.
No, it's a VFW.
It is.
That's the
Oh.
purpose.
But then VFWs, don't they often rent out those spaces to bring in revenue?
They might, I mean, that's a total different issue, but I mean, this is. They're not going to have like a full-fledged kitchen like some VFW. So, I mean, I don't know whether that would be the case or not.
Yeah, I mean, I've done that before, at least where I grew up. The VFWs were always spots that people rent out, and you just bring in catering, chafing dishes, they don't even need kitchens and stuff like
Yeah.
that, but just because it's a space.
Yeah.
So, okay, nevertheless, the sidewalks are still important on that development of the spot there. And then. The other comment, I made a couple of comments regarding the green spaces portion of our stuff. Landscaping, utilizing the species from the approved list, so that kind of gets punted to the trail,
Shade tree.
thank you, shade tree and their arborist to look at that. And then this was more a procedural thing that was. They had all the future development shown on there. And that's just, I mean, I do this in my professional life all the time, reviewing packages and also putting out them for permits. For state and federal, and it's just very weird to show all that future stuff. Because usually the agencies don't want to see any of that unless you're prepared. To actually talk about it and give more details.
And that's what was communicated.
Okay,
At the planning commission. They either needed to come in with a full plan or they needed to come in with just that plan. The problem that they have is they want to treat it as a lifestyle village. However, if they bring in just that one building, then it would have to meet the zoning for just that one building, which would mean the setback has to be greater than if in a lifestyle village. So that's the challenge that they have.
gotcha.
But the plan was not done in such a way that they were coming in and saying, this is going to be this. They put on there, I think they showed some office space, I think 30,000 square feet or something.
Mhm.
And they showed some other stuff that potentially would be there. But the planning commission pushed back. I suspect the board of supervisors will push back as well. And say, you need to either come in with one or the other. You can't hybrid it on something that we don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah, that's great, then that's good to hear that, because like I said, that's consistent with all my professional experience in that realm, so I'm glad that they made that.
Is the planning commission continuing on with this project? Or was it ended that night?
I'm sorry.
Meaning,
So the planning commission voted, actually the planning commission voted to treat it as a preliminary project instead of a preliminary final. I believe the applicant will choose not to come in for preliminary approval. Particularly when I told them they would have to fill out another application and pay another fee. And so I anticipate that they're going to choose not to go forward with that and just go back to the planning commission for a preliminary final when they're ready.
So we can get these comments over to planning then, if that happens?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how soon you act on them, but yes, I would assume so.
the other thing that I was confused about, maybe it's just on the vernacular that they use. In the project narrative, it talked about no variances being anticipated, but then on the drawing set, it said something about there are 2 waivers requested. So
Yeah,
are they
so-
just using, are those 2 separate things entirely?
They're 2 separate things. Like
Okay.
one of the waivers that almost everybody asks for is for a certain type of pipe to be used versus another type of pipe, and that's just a waiver. It's not a variance. The other thing in this case was whether it was going to be a preliminary final or a preliminary plan. And if you do come in for a preliminary final, you need a waiver. Because usually you have to go through the steps of having a preliminary approval and then a final approval. If you ask for the waiver, you don't have to go through the process twice. And so that's what it would be for.
Okay.
And both of those are at the discretion of the board. A variance would be something that needed to go before the zoning board based on that they're asking for something that goes against our zoning. And that goes back to the comment that I made related to whether or not the project was going to be looked at as a lifestyle village or not. Being looked at as a lifestyle village, they can be within 20 feet of a roadway. If they're looking at it strictly as a commercial piece in a commercial property, they need to be 100 feet from the roadway. And the building was too close to the roadway, Alice Green Boulevard, to qualify on that level. And that's the reason for the comments that were in there from the engineer.
Okay. The other thing I forgot to mention on the walkability portion was the potential for ADA compliant crosswalks to the aprons on the adjacent property. Just wondering if that would be a necessity, again, due to people maybe parking there. Obviously, they're going to be putting in parking for this facility. So I don't know how that works, but that's something I know it's come up on some of our other reviews. The whole point is walkability is connecting everything in the township to our neighbors and also the other communities. So if they're doing development in here, it would be nice to have crosswalks, provide safe access around those roads.
Yeah, I think one of the challenge, I mean, I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
One of the challenges, as if I recall, and I'm mentally thinking about the site location, the road going or the driveway going into where like the Goodwill and that side to the left does not necessarily match up with the driveway going into the driveway going into the memorial. And because of that, crosswalks would be like, where's the crosswalk?
So so there's two entryways. The northern one matches up perfectly. But the one that's closer to Westchester Pike, it offsets, but there could be a crosswalk between the two offsets. So you would just have to pick the right side.
Well, you can't-
Unless that's not allowed by code or something.
well, you're usually not allowed to have what they call mid-rock crossing.
Okay,
And so that's why I was saying.
Gotcha.
And the one I think you're talking about is down at the,
I had it listed at both locations, but
Yeah.
if
No,
that's an
I-
issue, then that's an issue.
yeah, I think that's the issue.
Okay, yeah, because they essentially have that new structure that's built right up on the road, like we're saying with the offset, is essentially in line with that entrance to the left of the page there. So that, okay. That makes sense.
And I do think the crosswalks become more important if they are putting a whole lifestyle village there, because eventually people are.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not saying crosswalks aren't important. I absolutely think they're important. I just think at that particular location, the first entrance there, right at the memorial, people cross there when they attend a memorial event. I mean, that's for sure what happens. Obviously, depending on what they do in the future, I mean, they've got, if you look at the plan, it shows for, another couple hundred spaces plus a office area. Obviously, if they did that, there would be parking there on the same side of the road as what the memorial is. And your need for the crosswalk in a bad spot is not so much of an issue. You could put a crosswalk at the corner of 3 and Alice Green Boulevard.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
And then that's fine because it's a clear crossing and that's a good place for it. You can also do it at the very end of the parking lot area that comes out. If that place there is where they're having a crosswalk and a shot across. It's just that when they don't match up, it's always hard to do a crossing that makes sense. That's not dangerous because people get to an intersection and they expect a crosswalk. If you do a crosswalk in the middle, it's always more difficult. I mean, we're looking at some, in a couple locations here in the township, but they're going to have flashers and all kinds of.
I was gonna
Thanks.
say, as you said that before, I was thinking, but all the ones I know that are like this have like the big flashing signs and everything. So,
Yeah, and they're highly discouraged by PennDOT unless you have, a high need and a really good landing pad on both sides. And right now, there's not a landing pad on one of the two sides, depending on where you go.
All right, well, there's definitely two alternative locations then, so with I think then what we can do is maybe I'll modify this document to reflect that, because that is a very good point. And get it back out so that when the planning board meets again on this particular one, they at least have those up-to-date comments.
Did we get board approval now?
Yeah, that's what I was
Subject to
just
the
thinking.
modification?
So,
Can I add one more
Yeah.
potential modification? And I'm sorry I didn't bring it up last time because I didn't really see anything about lighting. So the area is starting to get brighter and brighter. You have the cone of light that shoots up in the air. So light pollution is starting to be more of an issue if they're putting a whole village in there. So lights that are, directed down and a little bit more, again, night sky friendly. Again, I know it's not totally falling in our realm, but, protecting green space and the stuff above the green space and making sure that, it's a nice area to be in where the light is directed, focused where it needs to be and not just shooting up into the sky for no good reason besides to shoot up in the sky.
so I would reply with, does the EAC have anything in their charter about light pollution?
Well, I mean, in general, it's the environment, so
Yeah.
I would argue that they could.
I just didn't know if that was something that they have commented on in the past.
Well, I don't know that they've commented on that specific. I think there will be crossover between the different boards and what they comment on. I mean, obviously, you want as much as possible stay in your lane and, focus on the things that you're responsible for. But again, you're a recommending body, so that's what you're doing. And in this case, there are some limitations on lights because we have ordinances that say the lights have to be like this, and this. And so it's shielded, it can't leave the property, those kind of things, but I do hear what's being said by Beth, because I do realize that you have that power that has light coming out the top. And
It's
a little
that
different.
and the Porsche dealership and SAP and I live right near there and it is definitely brighter than it was just a few years ago. You can tell the difference.
Yeah, I'm looking, I don't actually even remember noticing their lighting plan on the drawings. I'm sure they have fixtures shown for the parking lots, because I believe that's like a safety requirement, right? So,
Actually, there was some things that I don't think were on their plans, that's one of the reasons why the planning commission would not grant them final approval. And so one of them being the sewer hookup was not shown on the plan, and they wanted to see that before they did the approval. So there may have been some other things as well.
yeah, I mean, again, it depends. I mean, this is a very detailed set for permit application, but if it's missing some of those key details that the planning commission is used to seeing, then it doesn't make sense. So, okay.
Anthony, one other thing that we talked about before, we're looking potentially at a walking trail along Reese's Run above. And if we get the walking trail, it might be difficult at that time to get some sort of a road or pathway up to it. And it might be a possibility to get it now, or when they start with a bigger construction, to get it from that point up to the trail. So we would have another parking spot, another trailhead for the trail ones, if and when it comes in.
Okay, so you're talking about as you go past this, but more in the future development space that they were showing, right?
Yeah, the future development space would be closer, but you'd still be a little bit of a walk from that. The problem is we don't have the trail in yet.
No. Is there, Mr. Neese, is there any potential that, so do we think then that their new submission, have they indicated if their new submission is going to wipe out the details of the future village stuff and all that?
No,
They're gonna leave it?
their comment is that they want to do the future village. They just haven't planned out what it's going to be yet.
Okay. I was just wondering, because, if they're doing this portion, is there a potential that the current owner subdivides it? And would that mean that they wouldn't be interested in negotiating the trail and Reese's Run because it's not on the property they're
Well,
currently
I think,
applying for?
I think for your piece, and I think what John's trying to say is, if you could get some commitment to the trail today as part of the development, you don't need it to be necessarily built today or anything beyond that, but that there be some commitment related to a trail and the connection. I mean, I know that's been talked about in the past, but I think every time this developer comes in with a plan, you should have it on your agenda that they have some space on there for a trail. And I would actually argue that ought to be the focus of every plan that you have that comes in and say, is there, if you look at it and say, can we get a connection from here to here? Can we get sidewalks from here to there? Because that's all a part of the walkability. And so, I mean, we know we have a potential of a trail coming down Reese's Run. And so we have pieces of it already, and then we're working on some other pieces. So it would be appropriate for you to say, we would like a commitment from the developer for a trail that would connect from the crossing on Boot Road, at least to, maybe up to Alice Grimm, to across the street, so that you could get over to the Drexel Lodge, or if you want to go back over to the other side and get down by Crum Creek, whatever you're looking for, that's what you should be asking for. And that's the kind of things that I think is appropriate for this. That's the place I would spend my direction of my time and energy. And let some of the other committees focus on some of the other things that are there. So you talked about your sidewalks. I think that's positive. I thought I would look at my trails. And, if you want to mention about native plants along those things, then I think that's important as well.
I just didn't know if, because this specific permit was this small property, that trail connection is like, I know it's the same owner, but it's technically not the same application. That's what
I
I'm
think
wondering.
that if you go on record that you're asking for it now,
Good. Okay.
he or she, depending on who's handling this for the Deepatons, they will know that this is something you're going to be asking for all along the way.
Okay.
And I say ask early, ask often. And, this is what we think, that this is important. My understanding was there was a commitment at some point for this already. This is just asking them to continue to have that commitment before us. And if it's at least documented on the plan that they commit to do a trail to do some connection points, even if it's not, here's the easement,
Mhm.
at least you can go back and say, we have that as a recorded on the plan, that they will be giving us a 10-foot wide easement to put in a future trail.
Okay, all right, I will. Well, so let me just recap then, so we can vote to make sure everybody's in agreement. So I'm going to add the proposed trail, which we already show on our trail plan for Reese's Run, put that in. There's a request for a commitment to a future agreement, future easement, to put that in. And I'm going to modify the crosswalk based on Mr. Neese's comments. So I make a motion to make those changes as we've discussed. Anybody want a second?
Yeah, just a modification, perhaps, maybe to also talk about a trail going from where we are now up and to connect with the trail for the future.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. I'm
Okay.
talking about having come all the way down to this property.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And potential connection.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Put it all in there.
Okay, all right, so Boot Road to Drexel Lodge and the change for the crosswalks. The lighting is actually shown in the drawings, but based on some of the things Mr. Neese said, they might have to change it because it doesn't look like it's shielded. I actually did look that up. It's on there. They even have a light fixture shown, so. But it doesn't look like they have a hood or anything. It's just a flat LED light fixture. Okay, sure. All right. Is there an easy way to find out what our ordinance actually says, so I'm not saying something completely incorrect?
On regarding our lighting, yeah, just go out on the website, general code,
Type in lighting.
and then, go type first, go to our search, do a search on township code. It'll take you to a place where you click on township code, it'll take you to general code. And then you type in the search lighting and you'll find that.
Okay, all right, great. I just want to make sure I'm referencing the proper thing and not going against whatever our ordinance says. Okay. Motion, I'm going to make a motion to approve the 3 items that we just discussed. Reese's Run Trail, Boot Road to Drexel Lodge, change to the crosswalk detail that we were shown to eliminate that safety issue and move it down to closer to Route 3. And then make a comment about the light fixtures. I've already got the parts of there about the native plants. Anybody want to second that? Okay. Moved by Chair Anthony DiVincenzo, seconded by Terry McCarthy. All votes aye. Aye. All votes opposed? Okay, ayes have it unanimously. Okay, move on to item 9.2, update on wildflower plantings along the Goshen Road Trail.
I am reaching back out to the Lenape.
Do you have an actual contact there at this
I do.
point? You do, okay, so it's not like just a,
No, I established a contact in the fall and just with everything, I didn't really have the time or chance to follow up on it. So now I'm going back to that original contact, and hoping they are still willing to work with us.
okay. Anybody else have any comments on 9.2? Any questions?
If you get bulk orders in, say you want 500 plants. Plugs. That's when you put the.
It depends, but also we need to have funding for it. So that's the other side of that. We may need to look at grants and, you know, but we need to find out what plants we might be looking for, then possibly grants that will follow up with that, or if, George's department has anything
All right.
for that. So there's kind of a few steps, I think, to that process.
Okay, so then the next question I would have then would be, based on when you talk with the representative from Lenape, then you have a certain area, you have a certain plantings list, right? Like certain plants that you want to implement.
Yeah.
And then from that point, we then have to come up, do we do that internally? Do we come up with an estimate? Hey, here's the species that we're looking at. Here's the area we have to cover. We're going to be roughly this many so that an estimate can be done. And we give that to George at that point? Is that the process that this should go through?
I mean, I think that if the scope is come up with an idea of the quantity, we can price it out and see where we're at.
Yep.
You know, see whether that fits into an existing budget item or if it doesn't, and then we go from there.
Yeah, I think that's because I'm now thinking about the actual like execution on that side. So once you hear back, that would be the next step, figure out what we want to plant, how many of them. Get it over to George's estimate, and then if he says, hey, it's not on our budget, then we have to go to the next step, which is investigating grants or some other funding source.
And I know that EAC earlier had mentioned that there are grants that do come up specifically for that. And there are some state nurseries and other places where you may be able to get stuff at
Yeah, and we,
discounted or, you know, slightly different rates.
and you and I had a conversation as we were leaving the Monday coordination meeting of all the chairs. I forget her name already. The EAC, the new.
Mahalo.
No, it wasn't her. It was the other woman.
Sheila.
Sheila, thank you. And she had said that she did want to, you know, coordinate with us a lot on doing stuff. She sounded pretty excited about getting together. So maybe this is something they can help out with. Great.
I can get you.
All right. Good. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to item number 9.3, update information on signage for the Newtown Meadow Preserve.
This one may be more for George. I'd kind of given you some information. I know we were kind of trying to get illustrations and it just stalled a little bit.
And well, and that's the key, because I think you had provided some wording of some signage and some roughing in, but I think the artwork needed to be added to it. And as soon as the artwork is determined, then we can price out the signage that we had budgeted to do.
Okay, I'll get back on that.
Well, we're kind of ready to go when we have that determined.
Okay.
You know, again, when we looked at it, we realized we were not going to have the expertise to select the artistry to go with it.
Yeah,
But we can, once we have that, we can finalize the rest of the laying out of the sign and getting them ordered.
and kind of in that same vein, we had talked about some navigation type signs within the meadows and some of the other trails. Is there any movement on that?
No, I think they would all be done at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also just wanted to give real big the signage in or like the Lenape. Beautiful. All really nicely.
All right, moving on to item 9.4. Update information and potential action regarding trail extensions for the Newtown Meadow Preserve Trail. I guess, Aaron, you were involved.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want to provide an update?
Well, I think the first thing, when we're talking really about the extension of the Meadow Preserve Trail, I don't think there's anything that's actually in action right now. And so, and probably won't be for at least 6 or 7 months on that side. What is in action is, and we've talked about this, we've talked about having some parking at the Meadow Preserve. That's really the first step. And we will actually, Supervisor Altieri and I will be meeting with some folks tomorrow at the Meadow Preserve. We waited till one of the coldest days of the year to do that. But anyway, just wanted to see how hardy everybody was, I guess. When you planned it, it just sure didn't think about it being that cold tomorrow. But anyway, we're going to be out there tomorrow doing that with, I don't know how many residents that are there that have some concerns, and we'll be prepared to do that. I think what I want to be really clear is the Board of Supervisors hasn't taken any action yet. And the reason they haven't taken any action yet, we haven't presented it to them yet as an actual action item. You all have talked about it as a possibility. The parking has been talked about as a possibility. George and I have gone out. We've had some conversations about what would be some ways to handle that. And we have some basic drawings to be able to do that. And then we don't want, the goal is not to go out there and rework the whole park at this point. We have a master plan that we want to eventually go forward with. This would be just as a place to get ourselves started, get some place in there so people can get in and access the park a little bit easier than parking at the paper mill house and walking up, not the paper mill house, I'm sorry, the John West house and walking up. And so that's the purpose. My understanding is some of the residents have concern about where the parking will be, how the parking will impact the housing there. I would say 90% of the parking won't impact them, other than the fact that there'll be some cars going in and out of the road throughout the day. The park's only open dusk to dawn, so there shouldn't be parking going there in the evenings anyway. We have looked at 2 ADA spots that are a little bit nearer to the entrance of where the entrance is now. And so that's probably the most impact on the residents that are there. And we are, we're looking at that as how to make that as least impacting on those in that location as possible. And so that's where we are. And my goal, hopefully, is after we meet with the residents tomorrow, is to take it before the Board of Supervisors on the 13th or the 27th, one of those two, to get their approval, literally to engage in the discussion of what it would look like and get the engineer involved to give us some basics of what we can do and how we can handle a few of the issues that are there. And then particularly address how we would do the ADA parking, because ADA parking has some requirements that we don't have for non-ADA parking in regards to, it probably will have to be some kind of pavement at that location so that somebody can get out in a wheelchair and be able to access that area. We haven't put a path in that's ADA compliant. So, you know, this is more of giving somebody, if we're going to do this, and it was more important when we thought we were going to try to get some funding. We've been told that we're not getting that funding. So, I mean, but we still think it's the right thing to do as the township. We shouldn't do anything. We don't give access to everybody, you know, and that's the piece that we're trying to do. So that's where we are with that.
And just to give some context to that too, we did have a meeting with the Lister HOA representatives and we walked their property and the Meadow Preserve Trail just to look at where their property abuts the township's property and what an eventual trail might look like, where the parking would be located. He's new head of the HOA at Lister, so he needed to get familiarized really with the boundaries and the physical locations.
Yep.
So that was the first meeting and they were open to, you know, talking more about the idea of a temporary trail, the idea of a permanent long-term trail. But first, from a chronology standpoint, for an update for all of us, the parking needs to be addressed first. And so really, they're not going to move forward in conversations with us about trails until we get the parking done.
And it's real important as we do this, we want to make sure that the residents in Lister are, you know, a part of the process. And so we're not trying to do anything that's not, and we haven't gotten even into the public side of it yet. We've just started having some conversations to start saying, is this even feasible? You know, if the HOA board had come back and said, we don't even want to have a conversation with you, we wouldn't have gone any further, right? But you know, this was the first part of that. You know, the parking is not necessarily dependent upon the HOA in any way, but it was something that we said, we don't want to do this without having the residents have an opportunity to weigh in on at least what we could do to mitigate what the impact may or may not be on them. I know that people now are going in, driving into Lister, and they're parking on the streets in Lister and then accessing the trail. That's not what we want to have happen. The HOA is, I don't want to say private property, but it's private property in a way. You know, you think about it, it's not, they're not public streets. They're for those HOA folks. And so we want to provide something for the public to access that's not their property, but it's on township property. And that's the whole piece of where we're headed.
And that's a really important point, that the parking lot would be located on township property. And the two important audiences are the Lister residents who live right around where that parking lot would be constructed, because there are houses there, and the HOA and the residents want to be sure that the parking lot's not going to be an eyesore or impede their view of the meadow. And then the second audience is further down the line. If we do make a trail extension into Echo Valley, those neighbors are also important to bring into the conversation, because having the parking solved first will deter people hopefully from parking in Echo Valley, because Echo Valley residents don't want parking on the street where there's a walking trail that accesses the Meadow Preserve as well. So those are the first two, you know, really important audiences that we need to consider.
I believe this is maybe the comment or one of the spots that you were potentially going to comment on. So got a couple minutes if you want to say anything. I don't know if you had any questions. Okay.
If you could, if I have you come
Yeah,
up to
please.
the,
And please state your name and your address, please.
Okay, my name is DJ Varner, 203 Gerard Avenue.
Is that
It's in the enclave.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
yeah, okay.
All right. Just as a somewhat frequent user of Lister Trail and the Meadow Preserve is walking and running, I was just curious what the future holds for the area. It's a beautiful area. So, and I'm also interested in trails. If there's something that extends over to Echo Valley or whatever, it'd be wonderful. But I don't want to prolong things. I'm just curious where I could find out more about what the possible future things would be.
So what I would recommend as a first view and get your kind of whet your appetite, so to speak, of what the township's plan is. If you go on the township's website and you type in Trails and Greenways Master Plan, there is a Trails and Greenways Master Plan that talks about the trails that we're looking for all over the township. Now, not all of those will happen in yours and my lifetime, most likely, but they're all, that's our plan, what we would like to see. The second piece is, I would say, specifically related to the Meadow Preserve. The township did a master plan probably 6 years ago, 6-7 years ago, that we did specifically related to the Meadow Preserve. And if you go to that master, same thing, go to the trails website, or go to the township website, type in Meadow Preserve Master Plan, it will take you to that. You will see there's a couple options that are in the plan of some options of way of doing things. Not everything will probably be done. I've got board members today who say they're not interested in certain parts of that. There are other parts that they're very interested in. That trail will probably almost always be some kind of earthen trail as much as possible. There are a few spots that we've talked about. We may have no choice at some point, depending on how used it is, that we have to go back and do something that's more permanent. But the whole idea would be, we've looked at it. We don't see changing a tremendous amount of the type of trail that is. That was meant to be more meadow, more earthen in its approach. There are other trails, obviously, like the trail that goes to it from the John West House. That's meant to be a solid walking trail that's easy to walk on in that way, understanding that some people may never do the Meadow Preserve because it's a little bit more strenuous and not necessarily the way they would do it. But we do want to give handicap access or ADA access to that. And so there may be, particularly where we will end up having to do switchbacks at some point that are formal switchbacks. We've done temporary ones, if you know where I'm talking about there, but we're looking at doing formal ones at some point. When we do those formal ones, my guess is that those might be more permanent in nature, allowing somebody who has limited physical or has physical impairment issues that would need to be able to access, be able to do so in a way that's comfortable, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you very much for,
What's your address again?
203 Gerard.
and where's Gerard?
The enclave, it's the white townhouses.
Ellis Preserve. Right, okay. Well, thank you so much for attending. And just to reiterate
Yes.
Steve's point, our mission and our charter on this committee is connectivity among and between the trails in the township. And so there, we do have an opportunity to create a bigger continuous loop from the Goshen Trail across Lissitor to the Meadow Preserve. And then we'd like to be able to make it a big loop that goes back to the Goshen Trail. And then we've already discussed Reese's Run and additional trails across Goshen Road. But on that side of Goshen Road, we have ideas out there that we're trying to get resident buy-in. We're trying to get, neighborhood buy-in, local township resident buy-in. So, coming to these meetings is a really great idea to just voice your opinions and the fact that you would love continuity among the trails, because that helps us have everyone be aware and helps with transparency. Okay, well, we like that. Thank you very much.
I believe you've been to one of our other meetings before too, so thank you. Thank you for coming in. Anybody else you can recruit to come to the meetings from the resident side, please? George? Oh, I thought you were reaching for your mic, sir. Okay. All right, moving on. Items for the next agenda. Does anybody have anything they would specifically like to talk about in our upcoming meeting? With the obviously, we're going to want an update on the February walk on the 11th, but anything specific?
One thing before that, we want to talk about the trail summit that's coming up.
That's right. It was my fault. I didn't get stuff over to Steve Bradley fair enough, but yes, we have the trail summit coming up. I gotta get with you, Beth, to go over. So we've done this last year where it was myself and Leonard. Leonard kind of kicked us off as our first year. It's gonna be in person this year on March 3rd or 4th, I think. I think it's the 4th.
February 4, yeah.
It's this Saturday. It's in 2 days.
The email I have says 3/4. All right, there you go. Great.
I do it on Saturday. You want some help?
All right. I checked it like 3 times. The email I have says 3/4. Okay. So basically that means that I have to redo the presentation.
Yeah.
For this weekend.
I think they have slots already set up for people, but they have a space at the end where other townships can talk, if it's anything like the past. So that would give you an opportunity just to get up and say a couple words.
All right. It's extremely frustrating.
I'll be there as well.
Let me know if you need that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just frustrated. Last year, there was a lot of back and forth. There was a pre-meeting set up to discuss everything. So I'm just frustrated that I don't have any of that. So, okay. Guess I know what I'm doing Saturday morning now. All right, I'll have to get with Doug Humes. I think you still have his contact, right, sir?
Yeah.
All right, I'll have to get with him and redo the presentation. We had talked, Beth and I, we had talked at the trail walk this weekend briefly about it, but I guess I'll bring it up for the rest of the group now.
So you're gonna combine Marple with Newtown, include Doug Humes in there, or?
No, I just want to get some more information. But the thought was to discuss our past year. Some of the things were of the gravest concern for our group in the upcoming year. And then highlight some of the positive spots about getting more of the resident public involvement that we've had from the trail walks that have been led by Terry. And then I guess some of the initiatives we've already discussed, some of the plantings, some of those things, really just giving an update on here's what we did in the previous year since the last time we talked, and here's our upcoming year, what we're hoping to accomplish. And I wanted to specifically, talk about in very generalities, the amount of losing green space, specific to the amount of development applications we've been getting and how that they're not making any more of that land. So we continue to lose it. And, I think we have 7 properties since the 2020 plan was put out that are already in application for development, and most have been approved, including the one over on Sawmill, Mr. Neese, that we walked right past this weekend.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
Sawmill.
That's the
on
one they're
Sawmill is
splitting
not
into
approved.
3. It's not approved yet? Oh, I thought it was. That's the Pereira property, right?
Yeah, it's not approved yet.
Oh, okay. All right. Do we know if it's anticipated to be? Is there any issues with it?
There are issues, and that's why it's not approved yet.
Okay.
They're going before zoning,
Okay.
and so.
I didn't know if it was just like, it was just still more steps, but I didn't know if there was any pushback from the planning commission or.
No, it was an issue of there's a requirement of so much frontage per property,
Mhm.
and that property actually is a very large property. And the developer's not trying to overdevelop it in any way. Actually, I would say he's trying not to overdevelop it. But we don't allow flag lots in new developments. And his development would require a flag lot. And so that's why he has to go to zoning.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think the township's going to oppose his plan. I don't think anybody, I don't think as a whole, the board's going to oppose his plan. But I do think that what they're looking for is to make sure that there is some restrictions so that there would not be future more development beyond what he's doing.
Thank you. Thanks for that clarification. Okay, so I guess I will take out the PowerPoint, update it based on a couple of that, and maybe send different slides. Terry, maybe I'll send you 2 slides or a slide to put in for just like, hey, here's the trail walks we did, here's some of the engagement, here's the numbers that we've been seeing on our meetups. I think that's a good one. Beth, I can maybe get you to do one for the plantings and maybe your engagement with Lenape. John, any help from you or information that you think is relative? I mean, obviously, we're going to talk about the green spaces and the hope for preserving them.
Yep.
with an official town map of some kind. We're not gonna go into details on it though.
Okay,
Okay. All right, I think that's as good a plan as any then for getting that together. Yep. All right,
We'll get that out.
the one thing that I would like to add to our agenda for next week, and we discussed it.
Next meeting, you mean?
I'm sorry, next meeting. Thank
Okay.
you. My brain is a little flustered because now I'm thinking, no, everything is immediate. We talked about it in the chair meeting that we just had about the social media posts and how. So the township had said that, if we, as a committee and all the other committees that are in the township could prepare just I forget the number you used, like two
I think I
posts?
said 2 posts a month.
2 posts a month. So let's say every month we come into this meeting with ideas for a post and maybe just a brief little 2-3 sentences. I think if every committee member comes in with, hey, this is something that we want to do. The obvious ones are Terry, or whatever that upcoming, I think 1 a month would be really good to list what we're planning to do for that upcoming month for the trail walks. That would be a great one. And then maybe the other one could be more the free form one. Hey, here's some other initiatives. Hey, we're joining up with the EAC for this. So that's what I'm thinking is every month we at least have the one to identify the trail walks and community events, right? So Terry, we can like combine that. And then maybe the other one is everybody comes in every meeting with, hey, this, maybe this. And then we could vote on it every month as, yes, I like that. No, I don't. What if we change that? And that way we could provide these posts on a monthly basis to,
Yeah,
to the township, and they could get our stuff out there. Because I believe once you do it, we can all share it, correct?
Yeah.
Mr. Neese?
So there would be, well, yeah, if you like our page, I think, I don't know how it all works, but somebody else does much better with social media than I am. But I mean, the whole idea is you can like a posting on somebody else's, and I think it then becomes part of your post or something like that. Whatever it is. Anyway, you can tell that I don't,
You don't have a TikTok account?
I don't, I have a Facebook account that I've been on like less than this
Alright.
many times in a whole year. And so, what I would say is there's a reason why we hire young people to do things in our office. But no, seriously, I mean, if you came in 1 month and you had 3 things or 4 things, you're not limited to 2. I'm just saying if every committee always had 2, that would be 20 postings a month. And so if you think about people saying that the townships keep things updated, if we could do 20 postings a month, that would be just about 1 every business day. And that would be a real positive. So that's the idea.
Yeah.
And that's in addition to what we would post on there or what the board of supervisors would post. So that's what we were thinking. And that's why that goal.
And the great part about that is that once it gets posted, all of us, which are, most of us, I'm assuming, are members of the Newtown Square Facebook group, and all the other ones can then repost that through and get the message out a lot better. So we get more great residents to come to the meetings. I know we have a lot of people already coming to the trail walks because of the meetup group, but we have talked about engaging more of this, like making sure that there's a lot more actual Newtown residents getting to them as well. So,
And these posts will
so
be
that's
sent
something I'd
out
like
to
to
all
have on the
the,
agenda.
all the residents of the township?
Everybody who follows our page
Okay,
would get to see it.
Great.
And what I know, the little bit that I know about social media, the more information you put out there, more likely people will follow you. And so my page, I don't have any friends. I don't even know.
Yes,
That's it.
very difficult.
There's a reason why I have folks who know these things. So, but I mean, I know it's important. I value it. I just am not a person who wants to be in it. So.
me neither.
Yes, so anyways, I think that would be a really good one to start off and have that going every month. So thank you for the idea of the meeting. That's perfect.
So why don't I why don't I just put together an email to the committee about this process? And maybe we can decide what we think is the best process to come up with one post per month, because I guarantee you, having a lot of social media experience, it's not going to happen in the meeting. The verbiage, deciding on it, if
Oh,
everybody,
yeah, let
if-
me be clear. I was
if everybody-
thinking more of like content, like the specific thing that we just wanted to talk about.
Right.
So,
okay,
because then it would get, I would say that just like we have the subcommittees for some of the other things to do more of the actual verbiage,
Right.
language and all that. Like, I would say Terry's just gonna, at that point, we're gonna say, oh yeah, we're gonna do trail walks, which we're gonna be on there. Do we
and
also
she
wanna
would
have
own
it-
that,
and
yes,
she
I
would
get
just
that,
own
that's
that.
would be our first one. And then the second one would be, everybody comes with a topic and we decide in the meeting.
We just start
which
on the
topic
topic,
we're gonna
yes.
do, and then who writes it?
I would think it would be whoever proposed it potentially should probably at least take the first stab, and maybe then if it wants to come to you and I to say, hey, what about if you tweak this? Tweak that?
Okay, got it.
What, you've got two. One's Newtown Township that I am following, Newtown Township, Delaware County. Then there's another one, Newtown Township, Delaware County, Pennsylvania. And it's got a bunch of old guys sitting at a table.
That might be a private one. There's a difference. It'll tell you if it's public, like if it's
Government.
it'll actually tell you if it's government or not.
Well, Town Square, Pennsylvania. There's a big accident.
They're Russians.
Well, yes, that's why I wanted to have it on the meeting. I don't want to take up today's.
Social media person, find out what they're called, and get an email out with some structure around this.
All right,
Sound good?
that works. And then, yeah, so we'll rehash it. Obviously, I wanted it for next meeting, so we can go deeper into this in the next meeting as well, and people can start with their first post.
Okay, because we need to find out too if they're on Instagram, because most people don't use Facebook anymore. Most people use Instagram, so I can,
Well, I can't control what people
can
think,
follow that.
we don't think it ahead of.
It's TikTok.
well, that's true too. So whether or not that will also intend
Thank
to find
you.
out. Thank you. If the township has a TikTok, which I don't think we need, but.
Come on the other.
I know, I
Yeah.
was joking.
But you could post on.
Yeah, I just looked at Instagram and didn't find one that's called Newtown Township, Delaware County, but how about I follow up with that? Is there an Instagram?
Let the record show that Anthony and Steve are both pointing to Steve Bradley.
I don't see one. All right.
All right. Well, again, it doesn't matter though, if they do that and we repost through Facebook, it'll automatically go, you can actually have it go through Instagram as well.
Mhm.
So,
As long as there's-
all right, sounds good. Public comment, we already luckily heard from DJ and glad that that's their second meeting they've been able to attend. Okay, motion to adjourn,
Don't move.
record show. Everybody wanted to adjourn, specifically John and Terry, and seconded by